effect of secondhand smoke on young children, particularly under the age of 14. It affects their lungs. They have respiratory diseases. My colleagues will discuss that in greater detail. But the reason it's important is that children's lungs are not as developed as adult lungs, and therefore they're more susceptible to the harmful effects of secondhand smoke. So let me add one other point. There was a survey in 2008 by the New York State Department of Health that showed that 95% of parents who smoke believe that it should not be permitted in cars. And that is a very significant number. There is no constitutional right to smoke. This is not a protected activity. The dangers are there, and we want to highlight the dangers of secondhand smoke as far as children are concerned. And first, let me turn to the Assembly sponsor, Assemblymember David Webber.
Thank you, Senator Stavisky. I'm very optimistic that this bill will be coming to the floor of the Assembly either today or tomorrow for a vote, and I expect an overwhelming support for it in the State Assembly. This is a bill that was carried last year by Assemblymember Nettie Meyerson, who retired April 1st, and one of her last instructions to me as she was retiring was asking me to carry this bill and continue the fight in the State Assembly, in the state legislature. I had actually introduced a bill in the City Council when I was in the City Council. I served in the New York City Council for 8 years, and our lawyers felt that it should be better done at the state level, and there are quite a few number of states that have adopted various laws on this with different age requirements, and there is actually a local law which has not been challenged yet in the courts, because the argument was that it could be challenged, the constitutionality, if it's a local law, and that's Rockland County. And my understanding is it's been working well in Rockland County, so I think it's time for a statewide law. The reason we chose 14 as the age, because there are other states that have 18 and even 16, is that our main concern is to protect young children. There's no question it's been proven the danger of secondhand smoke medically, and we have our medical experts that you'll hear from shortly, but particularly with asthma, the rise of asthma in children and other lung-related ailments, the secondhand smoke, particularly in a confined automobile, and if you're talking about a long-distance trip or a longer trip, the danger from that smoke is really dangerous. So we're really here to protect children. And when you're dealing with individuals, children over 14, they're more likely to speak out for themselves, to say to a parent or another adult to stop smoking that it's bad. And we're not just talking about parents. We're not looking, you know, the idea here is not to tell parents how to bring up children. But very often you have an older sibling, a teenager. I have 19-year-old twins who drive. And they could have a younger sibling in the car who might be a little intimidated to speak out to their older brother or sister, but we figured 14 was a good age. We could argue it back and forth, but I'm optimistic that this legislation will pass, and as the senator correctly pointed out, we've had other restrictions of so-called violations of privacy in the car in particular, with seatbelt laws. You can ask Governor Corzine about that one. He obviously had a personal almost death experience by not wearing a seatbelt, and he is a strong advocate for seatbelts, as well as other restrictions of handheld phones and texting. Assemblymember Grace Meng has been a co-sponsor of this bill as well. Grace?
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank the media and the advocates for being here today. I especially want to thank Senator Stavisky and Assemblyman David Webber for carrying this important bill. This bill is one that I'm very proud to have co-sponsored with former Assemblywoman Meyerson, and I'm very proud to be a co-sponsor now. As a mom of 2 young kids, ages 1 and 3, I think it's something that's very important. People didn't like the idea of no smoking in restaurants. People didn't like the idea of no smoking in public parks and beaches, and that's all been accomplished and dealt with. And regardless of what types of concerns you have, this is a measure that would literally save thousands of lives. Because of my work schedule and this being here in Albany, I also rely on people in my family to drive my 2 kids around to and from school. My father occasionally smokes, and luckily he listens to me, but I've instructed him that he is never to smoke in the car when my kids are there with him. Not all parents or not all adults will be so obedient. And so this is something that is becoming more of a modern day problem because of the busy schedules that the parents of kids may have. So I strongly support this bill. I thank everyone